What is going on, guys? What is going on, 27 Squad? Welcome back in to another podcast. This is the Undrafted Analysts podcast, where we're going to talk about all the past news in this week. Wildcard weekend is now behind us. Moving on to the divisional round. We have a lot to talk about, especially on this Monday. We have first the news with Deshaun Watson, as that sort of spirals ahead and becomes a huge snowball at this point. Eventually, it's going to become an avalanche once the big news is announced, whether he's going to stay or go, or finally request a trade, or however that may go. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Doug Pederson being fired from the Philadelphia Eagles organization, and we'll take a time to just laugh at it. If you guys don't know, I am a Giants fan. And then we're going to be talking about some storylines in Wildcard weekend and moving on to the divisional round, and I'll be giving my opinions and predictions on Wildcard weekend, on the divisional round. So that being said, let us get started. I don't have an intro for this podcast, but anyone wants to make one, you guys can. If you guys want my logo, I'll give you my logo, but I need an intro for this podcast if anybody's interested in that. So let's get right into it. By the way, tonight is the national championship game for the college football playoff, and that will be Alabama against Ohio State, and I'm hearing that Jalen Waddle is going to be playing in this game, so that should be a lot of fun to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that college season is going to end. But let's start off with the news of the day, and that is the huge bombshell that Doug Pederson has been fired from the Eagles organization. Now, I knew this would kind of happen. I did not think Doug Pederson will remain there much longer. I thought it may have taken a year or two more until Doug Pederson is eventually fired. In my honest opinion, I thought it was for the Eagles organization. I thought the owner or GM, whether it be Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Lurie, told him to tank that Week 17 game so they could help themselves in a draft pick. But I guess that was a Doug Pederson move, and if it was Doug Pederson's move and he knew he would be reprimanded for it and possibly fired, I don't know why he would make the move. It still brings up a huge question mark. What happened in that Week 17 game? Because was it just being ignorant and dumb for Doug Pederson? I mean, how did he not expect himself to kind of, get any repercussions for it? I don't know. But Eagles are now looking for a new head coach. We don't know who is going to show up for Dallas, for Philadelphia. I was thinking about Jason Garrett, former Dallas coach, that he may, find himself in Philadelphia. We don't know, but we don't know any head coaching candidates yet. They've been, during Doug Pederson's tenure with the Philadelphia Eagles, they just randomly interviewed their defensive coordinator, Jim Schwartz, who's probably going to be taking a year off this year, so they're going to be down a head coach and a defensive coordinator. Well, if they're down a head coach, they're going to be resetting the staff. But so this is not good news for the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm just laughing at it. It's just crazy to me. Honestly, this is so in the Philadelphia Eagles character that, I mean, it's a perfect story. It's a perfect story of just destruction of a franchise, right? This is just the Eagles. This is the Philadelphia Eagles, as dysfunctional as they are. You cannot get a more perfect story than this. It's not really me hating on them as a Giants fan. It's just like, this is who the Philadelphia Eagles are. We always talk about, in the NFC East, we always talk about the Dallas Cowboys and their mediocrity. But we have to talk about the Eagles and their dysfunctionality, right? Philadelphia hired Doug Pederson in 2016, and rumors are coming out, reports are coming out that he was even looked to be fired. I mean, they were thinking about firing him after his first season. I believe they went 7-9 in that season. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then Carson Wentz has a crazy MVP-like season, gets hurt, they win the Super Bowl, and I guess, that's what really kept Doug Pederson's job. And, after that Super Bowl, they decided to overreact to the point of putting a statue of Nick Foles, who was not part of the Eagles organization anymore, and Doug Pederson, who is now not a part of the Eagles organization anymore, they decided to put a statue of them two outside the link. And after 5 seasons of going 46, 39, and 1, after just 5 seasons, the Philadelphia Eagles now plan to induct Doug Pederson into their Philadelphia Eagles Hall of Fame. That is the Philadelphia Eagles franchise for you guys in a nutshell. So, and I know he had a decent win-loss record over those 5 seasons, but to be inducted in the Hall of Fame for that reason and winning that Super Bowl, there have been a couple of, a number. Just look at the Giants organization, Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin. Where's their statues, and of course, they're like no doubt Hall of Famers for the New York Giants team and Ring of Honor and things like that, but the Philadelphia Eagles, that is how low the standards are for the Philadelphia Eagles. A backup quarterback getting a statue in Philadelphia. So, that is the news. Doug Pederson is out as head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. We don't know who the candidates are yet. We don't know who their favorites are yet. Guys are going to be interviewed. None of that. So, we're still in the early stages. But let's move on to some more trade news, and that being, not trade news, just storylines. Deshaun Watson, he has some trade news. He's considering, now I don't know if this is a fact that he's considering the Dolphins. I don't know how much of a fact that is, but apparently he wants out of there. He has not yet to request a trade, but this has been made known by ESPN's Chris Mortensen. He's been known to be pretty accurate. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at a article from Pro Football Talk here, NBCSports.com, saying reports that quarterback Deshaun Watson's unhappiness with the Texans came across the radar this week and has been led to speculation about whether Watson will push for a trade away from Houston. That speculation is unlikely to end after a report from Chris Mortensen of ESPN on Sunday. Mortensen echoed other reports that Watson is upset that the team did not interview Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy for their head coaching vacancy. Now, I would be upset about this too. I thought Eric Bieniemy is by far the best head coaching candidate there is right now, and no matter who they pick, if they're not as accomplished as Eric Bieniemy is, I don't know. This guy might be a 2-time Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator and in charge of one of the best offenses in the NFL. Of course, Andy Reid is a big part of that, but this guy has been with Andy Reid since 2012. All right, so this guy is legitimately a disciple of Andy Reid. So this guy's completely Andy Reid, mindset. So wherever he goes, you could expect Andy Reid to go, a bit of Andy Reid to go with him. So, so apparently, I don't know, out of every single team you could possibly think of, Deshaun Watson wants to go to the Dolphins. Now, we don't know that for sure, but in all the rumors, all the speculation that we're seeing, Deshaun Watson wants to go to the Dolphins. That's weird. I don't know for whatever reason, mainstream media, how they're doing their mock drafts. I've seen one mock draft by PFF, having the Dolphins drafting a quarterback. What is this? What's the hate for Tua Tagovailoa right now? I don't understand. This man threw for nearly 2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions over the course of 9 starts. How is that in any way, shape, or form a bad rookie campaign? This guy hasn't shown no signs of him being a bust at any point. The only way people can think he may be a bust is that the Dolphins don't completely have trust in him because they took him out of 2 or 3 games this season in the fourth quarter, allowing Ryan Fitzpatrick to finish up the game and eventually win those games, I believe. I know he won that big game against I forgot what that game was. Was it Oakland? I believe it was against Oakland in week 17, if I'm not mistaken. And Miami wound up winning that game, and Oakland wound up choking. Las Vegas, they wound up choking that game. But Tua Tagovailoa, to get on his case for a second, I don't understand why the Dolphins would even decide to do that. Now, it is Deshaun Watson. As long as they have the cap space for Deshaun Watson, I would probably go along with it. This guy's already, the Miami is already in the win now business. They're done rebuilding, which is crazy because they started rebuilding last year. But It looks like they're done rebuilding. They have what they need to start winning. They went 10-6 this season. I would go ahead and do it if I'm Miami. But if I'm Houston, I would look for a better trade partner than that, than to start developing another quarterback after you already successfully developed one quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Why would you go back and restart that with a worse team? I don't understand that. For the Houston Texans, it makes no sense. As a rebuilding process, you would have to wait another 4 years, or maybe 3 or 4 years, for your team to be on competitive again. We don't know how much Tua is going to develop into, but if you're the Miami Dolphins, you take it. I don't know what their cap space is looking like right now. I probably should have went ahead and looked at that. But you're looking at a Miami Dolphins team that have two of the highest paid cornerbacks in the NFL right now, and they got a decent amount of weapons, and they have a decent amount of draft picks as well. I believe they had the 18th overall pick, which is what they had last year as well, and they also have the 3rd overall pick, which is what they had from Houston. Now, here's what Houston would get in return for Deshaun Watson. They would get their 3rd overall pick back, plus Deshaun Watson. Plus Tua Tagovailoa. So at the same time, that doesn't make any sense either. So why are you? I don't know. They would probably get Penny Sewell with that pick, right? I don't know. But Houston is in a train wreck right now, because of course you don't want a superstar quarterback playing for you that does not want to play for you, and of course you don't have the weapons to give this guy. So I don't know what. If you already have a future franchise quarterback, what is the means of having that 3rd overall pick? I mean, you wouldn't go ahead and draft another quarterback, would you? And would you go draft Penny Sewell after you got Laramie Tunsil? I don't understand. Okay, it doesn't make any sense to me. I guess you could get Penny Sewell, try to put him on the right side, right? I don't understand that. But Deshaun Watson apparently wants out of Houston and wants to go to Miami. Now, like I said, we don't know how accurate this is, because the guy hasn't even asked for a trade yet, but he is unhappy with Houston, and he can definitely, the ball is in his court if he decides to get a trade. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that the Houston Texans can say to keep this guy in Houston. Now, I know he has a trade clause, but how many times have we seen trade clauses be like, restructured or what have you? How many times have we seen a contract be restructured for a player to get out of a certain situation, or for a team to get out of a certain situation? We've seen it all the time. We're about to see it with Carson Wentz in the Philadelphia Eagles, because there's no trade clause for him, and the cap hit is insane for him. So, and dead cap hit is insane for him. So, we're about to see the same thing with Carson Wentz. So as far as that goes, I don't know the situation there, but that would be a huge bombshell if we see Deshaun Watson out of Houston, because that is the literal hope and dream of Houston right now, is hanging on Deshaun Watson. It's no longer J.J. Watt. He's getting past his prime. He's still a great player, but he's not the star anymore. That's Deshaun Watson's team now, and J.J. obviously acknowledges that, saying that Deshaun Watson, they wasted Deshaun Watson's year. So, that being said, that's very interesting. You guys can leave your thoughts in the comment section below on that one, or if you guys are listening audibly, you guys can hit me up on Twitter at KidBlueRB27. Hit me up on Instagram at KidBlueOfficial on Instagram. If you guys haven't heard me on YouTube, make sure you catch me on YouTube, KidBlueRB27. So, let's get on to some Super Wildcard playoff storylines, right? Now, I just want to pick through a couple of games. We're not going to talk about every single game, but I want to pick through a couple of games. The first one I want to talk about is the Saturday night game with the Buccaneers versus the Washington football team. Now, this was surprisingly a really good game. Very enjoyable to watch. I was, of course, rooting for Washington to win that game. I wanted to see some more NFC East representation. I don't hate Washington in any sort of way. I only hate them when we play them. But I really don't have any hate for Washington fans or the Washington organization. In fairness, I root for them to actually be competitive, because I want to see the Giants and Washington football team be competitive with each other and them be the top dogs in the division. So I kind of root for their success as much as I root for the Giants' success. So that being said, I liked what I saw from Washington tonight. Now, the defense didn't really get to Tom Brady as much as they wanted to. Chase Young, I want Tom Brady. They didn't get to Tom Brady. But they were competitive, and they kept that game pretty close throughout the end. Taylor Heinicke is the guy I really want to focus on. This guy I don't think is a franchise quarterback for Washington. Now, he posted by PFF, he posted the highest grade a Washington quarterback has ever posted up in any sort of game since Jason Campbell in 2007, believe it or not. So that's even more than 2012 RG3 in any game 2012 RG3 has played, or 2013 RG3. So 2013 RG3 got hurt a lot. So, but that being said, that's a really good stat, right? That's a really good stat to have when you're in conversation with those guys, and Kirk Cousins when his time there as well. So for Taylor Heinicke, definitely give yourself a pat on the back. This guy had some franchise quarterback vibes about him back with the Minnesota Vikings. I remember. I watched the YouTuber back in the day. He was a huge Vikings fan, and he would talk about Taylor Heinicke a lot. So that's kind of how I know of him. And obviously, after Teddy Bridgewater got hurt, I believe that was where Taylor Heinicke was starting to make some noise back in Minnesota. It feels like a long time ago that Teddy Bridgewater was back in Minnesota. But Taylor Heinicke posted up a really good game, threw for over 300 yards. Didn't even wind up finishing the game. He could have had more than that. And had two touchdowns, one in the air, one on the ground. Had an amazing effort from Taylor Heinicke. This guy is no way their franchise quarterback, I don't believe yet. I think he still has some more developing to do. But, I could definitely see him being a bridge quarterback for the Washington football team. If they want to go out this year and draft a quarterback, they can most certainly do so. They have, they have the 20-something pick in the draft, or maybe 19th. I don't know if they're the worst team out of that. I don't know how the playoff seeding is going to work for the draft this year. But that being said, I definitely see Taylor Heinicke being a bridge quarterback for the Washington football team. Like I said, if they want to draft a quarterback in this year's draft or bring in a free agent, I don't think Alex Smith is gonna be there next season. If I'm not mistaken, his contract is up. But even if it's not, I think you seriously consider retiring. He's hurting his leg again. This guy almost lost his leg. Probably not a good idea to keep playing on it and fighting fire with fire there. It probably should be a good idea to hang it up and not ruin his career even more, or possibly ruin his physical body anymore. And obviously Dwayne Haskins is out. Kyle Allen, is Kyle Allen going to be the guy? I definitely see a quarterback competition with them too if Kyle Allen sticks around. He has injury problems as well. So Taylor Heinicke seems like the guy moving forward for Washington. Now, I don't think he's going to be the guy for long, but if they go ahead and get a guy like Kyle Trask or something like that, right? Mac Jones even. If Mac Jones winds up in Washington, we'll see how he plays tonight versus Ohio State, but that will be very interesting to see as well. Now, I don't want Washington to get a really good quarterback. I want them to have those average quarterbacks. But, that'll be very interesting to see if Washington gets themselves a Mac Jones or Kyle Trask, develops him, and Taylor Heinicke, takes the reins until that quarterback is fully developed. So, great job by Washington. Great effort. I honestly think the Giants had a chance to win that game if they were to make the playoffs. Freaking Philadelphia screwed us up there. But I really think the Giants could have had a shot if they were to play in that game. It would be a home game, a rematch of that game. I believe that was week 10 or 12 or something like that we played against Monday Night Football that we played against Tampa Bay, where we just a 2-point conversion away from tying that game and going into overtime. So, that being said, let's move on to the Steelers and Browns game that happened tonight, which it was arguably the best game we've seen in Wildcard weekend. I mean, we streamed that game on the Hub's channel. Make sure you guys check him out on YouTube, the Hub. And not the Hub you're thinking about. So, We had a fantastic time streaming that game. AFC North matchup, and something we saw in Week 17 where Cleveland barely squeaked out the win, and the Steelers benched their starters. But when it comes to playoff football, mind you, this is a Cleveland Browns team that didn't have their head coach there. They had to make a whole arrangement of their coaches and fill in spots there. It was like a domino effect of spots there. I believe it was the offensive line coach or the offensive coordinator that became the head coach, and then the offensive line coach became the offensive coordinator or something like that. It was a huge just shift of personnel there. Or was it the defensive coordinator that played head coach, something like that, right? I don't remember, but they had a huge assortment and rearrangement of their coaches, and they still wound up beating that team, beating the Steelers. The Steelers team that at home, which they were at home had a 17-game win streak against the Cleveland Browns at home. And the Browns put a number, almost a 50 burger on Pittsburgh. So that was a fantastic game to watch. We've seen the Steelers crumble. The Steelers crumbled down to the ground, and they remain now, and they proved my point of the video I made 2 years ago that the Steelers are the biggest frauds in the NFL. Does that mean they're a terrible team? Absolutely not. But they're a team that's going to let you down always when it comes to the end of the season, like the Los Angeles Clippers are. And that brings me to another point. First off, let me give you a little backstory of the Pittsburgh Steelers for me. I grew up in East Pennsylvania. A lot of my life was spent in East Pennsylvania, so a lot of Philly fans there, right? So of course I had my hate for Philly. I had my hate for Philly back then. So that being said, but at the same time, there were a lot of Pittsburgh fans, and of course, Pittsburgh was the team, in the NFL, and have been the team for the course of my lifetime. Really, the Pittsburgh Steelers have always been very, very good. But one thing the Steelers will not fail to do is letting you down at the end of the season, especially during the regular season. They'll lose to teams with backup quarterbacks. They'll lose to garbage teams they shouldn't lose to. They have had their history with like the Miami Dolphins in the past, I believe, where they weren't able to beat them. They would lose to the Arizona Cardinals when they had their quarterback carousel over there. They would lose to Mike Glennon and the Buccaneers when they were a terrible team. I mean, they lost to a lot of bad teams in the past, okay? They have lost to a lot of bad teams they shouldn't lose against. They were constantly like a 11-5, 12-4, 13-3 type team, but they'll always fall short to those kind of teams. And then in the playoffs, they'll just let you down. Think about how good this Pittsburgh Steelers were and how good the New England Patriots were. In the regular season, these two teams are, I guess Pittsburgh is a little step down from New England in the regular season, but they've always been really, really good. But the difference is the Patriots have Super Bowl appearances and Super Bowl wins to show for it. The Steelers have 2. Granted, they won those 2, but they only have 2 appearances. All right, so during the course of that, they have just been the biggest frauds in the NFL, just like the Los Angeles Clippers. And you have to ask the question, is Mike Tomlin now on the hot seat? Okay, is Mike Tomlin now on the hot seat? You look at Doc Rivers, a little NBA comparison. You look at Doc Rivers with the Los Angeles Clippers. This is a guy that coached up a really good Clippers team for a couple of years, have always made it to the playoffs, like Marvin Lewis. Marvin Lewis in the AFC North, so Pittsburgh fans would know about him. But just a lot of comparisons there. You have Doc Rivers, who was eventually fired. He was a good coach and coached a really good team, just was never able to get over the hump. You have to start asking the question, is Mike Tomlin on the hot seat? They put themselves in really bad positions in this last game. I don't know if it was analytics or they started really making that 2-point conversion thing a thing, right? Their 2-point conversion tries, they do it all the time, and they started to do it like in the middle of that game for whatever reason, down a bunch of points. Probably not the best time to do that unless you get closer to them in points. But I think this team was down 28-16, and they went for 2. I mean, I don't understand. Just take your points. But those type of decisions are really questionable from Mike Tomlin. They did it twice in that game and didn't convert, but then they converted the last one they did when the game was already over. And then you have that 4th and 1 call where, again, it was in your own territory, but you're down I think about 2 or 3 scores at that point. The game is still in reach. You go for it there. You don't punt it away. That really showed his lack of confidence he had in the Eagles converting 1 yard. 1 yard for a team that has beaten the Cleveland Browns 17 consecutive times at home, that you don't have confidence to go get 1 yard and try to fight to win this game, because they were making a little bit of a comeback in this game. But you have to ask yourself, is Mike Tomlin on the hot seat? Because things like this happen to the Pittsburgh Steelers all of the time. And any Pittsburgh Steelers fans that want to come at me for this, I'm trying to feel for you guys in this moment, all right? I know everybody wants to say that there's nothing wrong. My camera's going out of focus. I know a lot of people like to say there's nothing wrong with Mike Tomlin. He can do no wrong. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer coach. Okay, you can say all those things, but at some point in time, you got to say enough is enough, right? You look at Tom Coughlin, his time with the New York Giants. I think we all knew that at some point it was time to let go of Tom Coughlin, and that was after the 2015 season. So, Mike Tomlin should definitely be on the hot seat, not this year, but definitely should have a microscope under him, over him. And monitor what he does and try to dissect what's really the problem with the Pittsburgh Steelers and why can't they get over the hump and make a championship run. This is a team that allowed the Jacksonville Jaguars to make it to the division, to the conference championships. The AFC Conference Championships, they allowed the 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars to get there. Now, Jacksonville barely squeaked out a win in that wildcard game against Buffalo, where Buffalo was still a fringe team, and so it's understandable why they lost that game. I believe that was with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. That was the first time they made the playoffs since 1999. All right? But then the big bad Pittsburgh Steelers with Antonio Brown, I believe this is also with Juju Smith-Schuster, correct me if I'm wrong, and you have Le'Veon Bell there. You got all these pieces over there, and you still found a way to lose to Jacksonville. All right, and this team was nothing. That team was garbage. They wound up in 2018. I believe they had a top pick. So, that being said, I mean, it's just that is what the Pittsburgh Steelers are. So, I feel for the Steelers fans. I do, but it is kind of funny just watching them be a constant fraud and the Steelers fans not seeing what the problem is, and the problem may be your head coach. Moving on, let's start talking about these future games. We'll get into our predictions of every single game in a second. But let's talk about this game against with the Buccaneers versus the Saints. Another divisional game, this time a NFC South matchup. I live in the Tampa area, so I have Tampa friends. So both of those games, that Week 1 game and that Week 9 game, I went to my friend's house. He was having a little get-together. He's a huge Bucs fan, so he hates the Saints. So both of those times I went to his house to watch the game, and both of those times everyone left extremely depressed. Okay, it's sad to say it, but those were two of the worst games the Buccaneers have had this season, and they were against the Saints. And what do you know? They have to overcome the Saints here in a divisional round of the playoffs to try to make a Super Bowl run. Can Tom Brady and the Buccaneers finally beat the Saints this year? Okay, because the Week 1 game, I know the score was 34-23. You may have thought that was competitive, but dear God, it was not competitive at all. That was an immediate loss. Everyone knew that game was going to be a loss in the first quarter, just the way everything was playing out. Tom Brady couldn't move down the field. He couldn't get on track with Mike Evans. They were having a huge chemistry issues. He threw a pick six to Janoris Jenkins. And just a lot went wrong for the Buccaneers in that Week 1 game. And you thought that they got it together and they fixed it, because by Week 9 they were a really good team, top team in the NFC. And everybody's like, oh man, Tom Brady in his second time, man, let's see if he can get it done. And this is at home. No, they lost even worse in this game in Week 9. They lost 38-3 in that game. Okay, so that was a lot worse. And now they have to face this team in the divisional playoffs, and it's not a good look, man. It is not a good look. Now, Devin White is coming off of COVID. I don't know if he even played in the last game, but I know he said on Twitter that he's back. I don't know what's going on with Ronald Jones. I know he got hurt, but just the way the Buccaneers played against the Washington football team, it's not giving us any good signs that things are going to be different the third time around against the New Orleans Saints. I mean, in all, just looking at it, Taylor Heinicke is pretty much their fourth quarterback starting for the Washington football team, and he threw for 300 yards, and the guy almost came out with the win. If he would have stood healthy throughout that game, and he stood completely confident and healthy, he would have probably won that game. Who knows? It kind of got away from their hands towards the end of the game. But the Buccaneers didn't really have a good game. That was supposed to be their pick-me-up game, right? That was supposed to be a quick little practice game before they get to the real deal, and that being the New Orleans Saints. So I'm not very confident in the Saints moving forward. In the Buccaneers moving forward in this game. I think the Saints are going to pull this one out. The Buccaneers, they have a lot to go through, man. They allowed at least 34 or more points in both their matchups, and the combined scores of both of these teams and both of their matchups this year, Buccaneers have scored 26 total points, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have scored a total of, I believe that is 72 total points. So 34 plus 38 is 72, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, but I'm just going by the math here while the camera is rolling. So 72 to 26. So they've got a lot to overcome here in this third matchup. It's going to be really interesting to see. I know a couple of people have the Buccaneers pulling off this game. I know Drew Brees isn't where he should be. He's father time starting to hit this guy as well. So we'll see how the Saints react to that. But Michael Thomas is back, and that has made a big difference. Alvin Kamara is Alvin Kamara, of course, and Taysom Hill shows up. I mean, he has a foot injury. We don't know what his status is for this game, but should be interesting. So let us go over the wildcard matchup. I mean, not wildcard. I keep saying that. The divisional round playoffs. Saturday, 4:35 on Fox. We've got the Rams at the Packers. Now, the Packers, of course, they're number one seed. They had 2 weeks of rest. It's like a bye week, right? How many times this season have we seen bye week teams stumble, all right, and sometimes even lose the game by a bad margin, all right? We've seen that a couple of times in this season. So, and I believe that when we beat the Seahawks, that was they were coming off the bye or something like that. But we have the Los Angeles Rams, who are coming off a really weird win off of the Seahawks, a 30-20 game that was so boring to watch. But against the Packers here, who had a week bye, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. Davante Adams against Jalen Ramsey. It's going to be fun to watch. Jalen Ramsey versus DK Metcalf was fun to watch. Davante Adams is better than DK Metcalf, so that's going to be extremely fun to watch. We'll see if Jalen Ramsey winds up following with him. But I'm really anxious to see Aaron Rodgers, man. It's his MVP season. I'm rooting for him this season. I want to see him get close to a ring, if not actually get a ring. He's having an MVP-type season and deserves it this year, man. He's playing out of his mind this year, and especially how he didn't have Davante Adams and still was putting up numbers. Now he has Davante Adams. Now Davante Adams is averaging like 3 touchdowns a game, for crying out loud. I think he led receivers in touchdowns this year, and he didn't even play the 16 games needed. I think he only played like 10, so huge ups to Davante Adams, but I don't know how I really see this game go. I think the Packers are going to win. I think the Rams are going home this weekend, so I'm going to have the Packers winning. I'll say like a 31-23 game for the Packers. Let's move on to NBC, 8:15 p.m. Saturday night. We have the Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. I'm really anxious to see this game. Everybody knows me for being a Lamar Jackson hater. I love him as an athlete. I don't like him as a quarterback. I think a lot of that was shown and proven in the last game. You put the ball in Lamar's hands and you make him throw. He's not going to do anything for you. I know he had a really good throw at the end of the first quarter, but other than that interception what was that? And, none of his balls wound up being spirals. And I don't know, he's just an extremely inconsistent passer. And I don't want him, I don't necessarily waiting for him to be exposed. I'm just like, I'm trying to make everyone see what I'm seeing, okay? He's a good player, good football player, but this guy's just not a great quarterback. But I don't think the Buffalo Bills will have anything to say about that. The Buffalo Bills have not been a good defense this year. So I mean, they've been very, very inconsistent. So, and they haven't been able to get to the quarterback this year. And rightfully so. I mean, their defensive line and their front seven is a little overrated in my opinion. I think Jerry Hughes is way past his prime. I don't know how I imagine. I want the Buffalo Bills to win this game. I think they can win. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, their running game is a little suspect, but they find a way to get things done, man. Gabriel Davis was huge for them in that Indy game. I want to say the Bills win this game, but man, it really seemed like the Ravens can pull this one off. Just how they came back against the Titans, and the Titans are obviously a better team than the Buffalo Bills in my honest opinion. So, and they definitely have a better defense. I'm going to say the Ravens win this game. I don't want the Ravens to win this game. I want the Bills to win, but I'm going to say the Ravens win this game. I'll say 23-20. Ravens win 23-20. January 17th, Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock, we got the Browns at the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to roll this team. I know that the Browns had a really good game against the Steelers, but the Chiefs are on a mission this year. They have been for a long time. Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the list goes on and on of the factors for the Chiefs team, and this defense has gotten a lot better over the course of the season. So I'm going to say the Chiefs roll this team I'll say like a 38-27 type win, and I think the Chiefs will start off early and hot like the Browns did against the Steelers. And Sunday night, the last game of the divisional round is the game we just finished talking about, is the Buccaneers at the Saints. This, like I said, man, I know the Buccaneers are looking good this season, but man, they haven't looked good against the Saints in both of those games. Like I said, 72-26 was the combined scores of both of these teams in those combined games. I don't see the Buccaneers changing anything here. This is the playoffs. I know Tom Brady has the experience. So we'll see what happens. That may be a factor. Similar, I don't know. That may be a factor, but I have the Saints winning this game. I don't think it's going to be by a lot either. They struggled to beat the Chicago Bears. That game was a snooze fest for like 3.5 quarters. So I'm going to say the Saints win just narrowly, like a 17-13 type game. 17-14, 17-13, something like that. I'll say the Saints win this game. I think it's going to be a lot less high scoring than we've seen in the past two matchups for these two teams. So that being said, guys, that is the podcast wrap up. I think this is episode 3 or 4. This is episode 4. So that being said, guys, if you guys are listening on Spotify, hit me up on Twitter. If you guys are listening on YouTube, hit me up in the comment sections and hit me on Twitter. So that being said, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast.